Welcome to the Rambler's Corner podcast, the best damn corner of the world, where we like to ramble. This is March 28th, episode 4. That was Nico with Eris. Today we're here with a very special guest, Steve Kinch.
How you doing, everybody?
He is a comedian and a very sensual being.
Yeah, I'm very wet right now.
And he's got a majestic beard.
Oh, man, this thing will not stop growing.
Unfortunately, our pal Joe couldn't make it today. He has other business to attend to. He'll be back next episode there. All right, so like I said, we got Steve Kinch in today, comedian, Face Magazine 2-time winner for Favorite Comedian of the Year. He's toured all over. You can check out his website at stephenkinch.com. That's Stephen with a PH. Kinch is Kinch.
Yeah, we'll link it.
We'll link it in the description anyway. So anyway, let's get to it. You guys got anything to talk about? You want to introduce Stephen a little bit more?
Well, one thing that is on my mind that I just need to ask is, I know, because I've known you for a while, and I know that you had the opportunity to open for Doug Stanhope.
I did. Yeah.
And I've always wanted to ask you about this, and I've never got into the full story. So how did that come about? Because that seems like a really cool...
Dude, yeah, it was really fucked. Doug Stanhope has been obviously a huge, I wouldn't say influence, like my style's not like his, but just, one of my favorite comedians. If you listen to Doug at all, he's amazing. When I first started in comedy, I was in a competition, and it was a competition to see who would open for him the first time he came through town, and I had no reason being in that contest. I just wasn't quite good enough, but I did all right. I got to the finals, that sort of thing. Somebody else won, but it was kind of a bringer show where people would bring people down, that sort of stuff. But again, wasn't my time, that sort of thing, so it was cool. When I heard the second time he was coming around, I sent a message off to the promoter, and I kind of just said, listen, keep me in mind. If there's anything going on, I'm sure he brings his own people, but love to be considered. At that point, when he came around the second time, I had been doing it a little while, so people had a chance to see me. I wasn't like blowing the doors off the place yet, but still, I was kind of catching some sort of a rhythm. So I hadn't heard anything back at all from them. It was the day of the show. I hadn't really thought anything of it. I was at our house. A bunch of friends came over. We all had tickets. We were all ready to go. Just got finished smoking a huge joint. Huge. Was definitely ready to laugh. And all of a sudden, my phone rings. And I'm like, okay. So I pick up the phone. We are literally heading out the door at this point. Cars running, heading out the door to go to the show. And I get a call, and it's the promoter. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? He goes, you want to open for Doug Stanhope? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he was like, the guy who's supposed to be opening for him, flight got messed up from Toronto, something, can't make it. You want to step in? Of course I said yes. Every fiber in my being was screaming, say no, because you're not ready. You know what I mean? But that's not what you do. When you get an opportunity, you take it.
You have to do that.
You have to. Yeah. So I said yes, ran upstairs immediately, got some stuff together, got some material together, went down to the club, totally in shock. Got down to the club, was sitting there. There's lots of local comedians around. There's kind of definitely like a bit of a buzz at that point because people are realizing somebody's getting the opportunity to open for them. I was the lucky one out of a group of people that could have easily stepped in, very talented people around, and was able to step in and do it. And it was actually one of the moments, I don't get starstruck too often, but I remember I was sitting in the green room, kind of back behind the stage, and I was sitting there, and all the acts were sitting there, and I was kind of just going over my notes, blah, blah, blah. I had my head down, and just with no big introduction, no nothing, Doug Stanhope just kind of walks in, and it was one of those legitimate moments where you're kind of like, what? Like, you don't really know how to react. You don't really know what to say. You're kind of just dumbfounded. It was pretty awesome, but it was totally out of the blue. Like, did not see it coming. 10 minutes before the show, I had no idea. Half hour later, I was on stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're getting ready to go to the show, and then all of a sudden you're high as fuck, first of all.
Oh, just mangled.
And then you have to go there and perform. Were you, like, did you just do what you would normally do? Like, did you think about when you were in the contest, did you think about I'll use this set if I do get the opportunity? Or
no, not at all. The contest was at that point like a year before that, so I kind of moved on to new material. I had some good material, or good at the time. It was okay. I got up. I did an okay job, but I was absolutely nothing at that point could dull the excitement. You know what I mean? Like, I could have got up there and totally ruined everything, shit the bed. I still would have had a smile from ear to ear. You know what I mean? But I didn't. I got up. I did a good job. People enjoyed it. Came off stage. As I was coming off stage, got a quick little cheers, kind of from Doug Stanhope, kind of like a little wink and a cheers kind of thing. So to me, I mean, I'm sure that would be his actions anyway. He's a great guy, but for someone starting out at that point, it was awesome.
You must have been absolutely shitting yourself. I can only imagine getting on stage in the first place, but going on for Doug Stanhope.
It was really intimidating. It was really, really intimidating.
What was the audience like there?
Well, Doug brings a different kind of audience, right? Doug brings a kind of audience where, if you haven't seen Doug's stand-up, very controversial, very smart, very intelligent, but very challenging. And the crowd almost feels like they have the ability to interact with him, even though he doesn't bring that on himself, but he just kind of opens the floor just through his mannerisms. So they're a bit more aggressive in nature than most comedy crowds, but they're true comedy fans, so they're very honest with you. When you're on stage and something's not working, they're gonna let you know, but when they really like something, they're gonna get behind you, they're gonna support you. So that was kind of cool. It was a different audience than what I was used to too, so it was very cool.
I was gonna ask you about that too. When you are on stage, what is your mindset? When you tell a joke, how do you, aside from laughs,
right,
but how do you kind of feed off of the energy of the crowd? And you say a joke, do you watch people's expressions? Do you wait for the laughs? Do you you adjust how you're approaching it?
When I in the first couple of years, when you're first kind of figuring stuff out, I found that I did get a little bit more rattled by things like that, and I concentrated a lot on the negative. You still do, but I found I had a much more emotional reaction, even though you wouldn't necessarily see it. Internally, I had a very, for example, if I was on stage and I told a joke and a couple of people, let's say it was an open mic, I'm working out some new stuff, and I let a joke go and I really thought it had potential, and there's a table in the back that's not listening, and they caused a reaction where other people couldn't necessarily hear the joke. My next joke, even though people might look at me and not see any sort of a reaction on my face, I might switch my next joke to a much more aggressive joke so that I can try to get a reaction, try to get somebody's attention. Where now that I've been doing it a little while, it's kind of, not every time, but it's taken on a little bit more of a professional approach where I know what I need to do. I know that by the time I go out on tour or whatever, I know what I have will work or won't work. And I don't necessarily judge myself by the audience reaction. It does have an effect, but if somebody's not quite into it, I can still kind of power through and just give them the same show that I would have the night before. You always kind of feed off it. If you're in a crowd where the crowd is just loving it, you know what I mean? And it might not necessarily be, they're loving your material specifically, but they're just really appreciating the fact that you're there for a show. They're really appreciating the fact that people are here to perform. They get it. They're a good comedy crowd. There's good energy in the room. That can carry you a long ways. You can start bantering more on stage than you usually would, interacting a bit more, doing some things that you didn't think you'd be comfortable with, all of a sudden you are. So it's pretty cool.
When was that first time where you were on stage and you were finally because I imagine that, especially starting out, there must have been a lot of times where you're constantly just so, I don't want to say nervous, but you're...
Nervous is the right
word. Nervous works.
It's the nervous.
But when was that first time where you were on stage and you were like, no, you know what, I can do this. I can do this. I belong here.
I don't know.
If there was a certain point.
I don't know. I know I've hit a point, because when I first started, I'm not necessarily the guy who naturally is okay with getting up in front of people. My first time wasn't this is no problem. I'll just get up, bing, bang, bang, it's done. There were a lot of nerves, and there were for a long time. for example, when I first started, my second time ever getting on stage, I threw my back out the night before the show, right? Which is horrible. Threw my back out before the show, but instead of canceling, I can't cancel. I want to go and get as much stage time as I can. I had to sit in a chair when I was on stage and deliver my jokes.
Yeah.
And
Are you very physical on stage?
no, I'm not. At that time, I was really not physical at all. Now I'm much more limber. I wouldn't say I'm a physical comedian, but I'm more active on stage now. But because of the nerves starting out, I was much more, a lot of one-liners, very, very still, like, you know. And when I sat in the chair, I actually got a really good reaction that night. So for like 6 months after that, I sat in a chair while I did my show. And to get out of the chair, all those nerves kept coming back. I knew it was something I had to do, but those nerves were still there. Your question, like, when was that first time you kind of were like, okay, I got this? I'm sure I've had moments of that. You know, I've had moments where I'm like, okay, I think I'm starting to get this. And then you go through a span where you're like, oh, I think I'm really getting somewhere. And then just as you get to that point, you hit a show that brings you back to earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You hit a show where all of a sudden people are like, I don't get what this fucking guy's talking about. Not interested. Just grounds you right back again. So you're always kind of, even when you're totally comfortable, you're still kind of on your toes. You're still trying to figure stuff out. So I hope that's the way it always is.
Yeah.
So when does a show or just being on stage, has it always been fun from the start? And when does it, like, does it ever start to feel like it's just a job, or is it always like fun? Because I mean, I know in comedy, a lot of the comedians that you hear sound so natural, like they're telling you a story they never even told before. When does it become like a rehearsed?
That's
you know what I mean? Like,
that's when you know they're good. Like when you hear something and it sounds like they're sharing something with you that they haven't told anyone before, and this is the first time it's coming out of your mouth. Yeah. That has come out of their mouth a million times before. You know what I mean?
Perfectly timed.
Perfectly timed. Every nuance. Like, obviously, there's sometimes you're on stage where you change stuff up. But, I mean, when you hear a big-time comedian doing these things and they're doing a HBO special or they're coming through town or something like that, they've got that thing timed out. Like,
it's calculated.
It's calculated. And it's been, you know, they've slowly been trying to figure that out over a long period of time, right? When does it become work? When does it become fun? I don't know. At first, when you first start out, for me anyway, that's the only thing I can talk about is really my experience. When I first started, I knew it's something that I wanted to do, but I wouldn't say it was fun. No. It was a lot of work. It was getting over those nerves every time, and like huge, getting up there and like, and I'm sure that's a similar story to a lot of people, but you do get to a point where things do become a bit easier, and then you're able to really enjoy yourself, and it comes across on stage. Like, you know, if my friends and stuff have seen me perform, they'll be able to tell more than the audience, like, oh, you were really comfortable up there. And that certainly is something that's come out over the last couple of years, that sort of thing, of me performing. Yeah.
Does that feeling of nerves become addicting? Because I've had some friends who are entertainers, and you know, they might take like a brief hiatus, and when they come back, as soon as they step on that stage and see the audience, it's just like, this is why I do this.
It's an adrenaline rush.
Yeah, it is an adrenaline rush, and it's also one of those things where that thing that gives you the nerves is being in the spotlight. It's doing that thing that you didn't think you craved, and then putting yourself in a position where all of a sudden you do crave it. And when you do take a hiatus, which I've done in the past, you realize when you come back, or when you're on the verge of coming back, you're like, oh, this is more important to me than I really gave it credit for. You know what I mean? You stand up back on stage again, and you've got those people staring at you, waiting for you to speak, and you're like, I didn't know I needed this as much as I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where before, when you were first on stage, all you wanted to do is have everyone look away. You were like, look at that, don't look at me. Yeah. This is hell for me.
Yeah.
And then you get to a certain point where you're right, it does get a little bit addicting. It's kind of a cliche thing, but it does get addicting. It does become that thing you want to do all the time.
That's interesting. I assume that, I don't know if it's just for me, like, I've the idea of entertaining people seems amazing. Like, that seems like, why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to make people laugh or, make people, feel something or whatever?
Yeah.
But, like, I feel like at first, like, I feel like you would just be up there being like, oh my God, I hate this. Why am I doing this to myself? This is the most stressful thing I've ever been through. But in a way, you kind of know, like, okay, listen, like, I want this. I have to do this. I have to go through this. Like, I have to do it in a way.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, and this is what happened to me. Like I said, when I first started out, every time I drug myself out to get on stage, it was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, I know it's something I want to do, but I'm ready to go throw up. Like, you know what I mean? Like the nerves and stuff.
Yeah.
And you can't necessarily explain it, but the next week you're out there again and you're saying the same thing. You're like, what's pulling me towards this? But you just keep going. You just keep going. You just, it just keeps pulling you back. Like, if it's something that you get up there, you get a taste for, you like it, it keeps pulling you back. It's like one of those things where it's fighting your natural instinct. Your natural instinct is to not do it because it causes you anxiety. So, every fiber of your being is saying, this causes you anxiety, fight or flight, get away from it.
Yeah.
But it keeps pulling you back.
Yeah.
It just does. I'm sure it's the same for musicians. I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people. And a lot of this sounds really cliche and kind of bullshitty, but it's...
Well, it's said for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? It's kind of weird. It's cool, though.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
I feel like, to be any type of entertainer, it takes a lot of balls, really, just to put yourself out there, and, like, oh, that first step must have been, like, tell me about the first time you went on stage. Like, what was that like?
The first time I went on stage was at this tiny little pub, and I was petrified. Like, I mean, I had thought about being a comedian when I was growing up, but where I grew up, it was a small town. People didn't do that. You know what I mean? That's not like, you didn't.
Where was that exactly?
It was in PEI, small town in PEI. So it was like, you fished, you farmed, that was it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got married, you had kids, that was it. Nobody was a comedian, right?
Yeah.
Now, years later, there's a couple of great comedians that come out of that town, which is super cool. But moved to in New Brunswick, did my degree, had a job, was making, a good, it was career money. And kind of got to a point where I was thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm not getting any younger, but I'm creeping up on, at that time, I guess it was in my late 20s. And I was like, I got to do it. I got to do it. So I quit my job.
It's now or never.
Yeah. Now or never, but it was more, it got to a point where, and this is the way that I've described it, because this is the way that it hit me. I always wanted to do it, but I didn't do it until the fear of doing it was less than the fear of not doing it. You know what I mean?
Fuck, that's profound.
But that's the way it got. That's the way it got. I was so petrified to get on stage, and then it got to a point where I was more scared to not be on stage. I was like, I can't be the guy who looks back and doesn't do it. I can't, again, cliche, but I can't let it slip. I got to at least see what it is. Like,
Life's about risks.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it was a huge risk. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
the job that I left was a 6-figure job. So I left that job to do this knowing that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to land on my feet. I don't know what's going to happen. Now, luckily, I moved to a place where I had some good friends already here, so I had a lot of people help me out along the way. I really did. And I had, and it was a year in the making. You know what I mean? Like, I knew a year before I moved, I was like, okay, I'm moving. I'm going to put some money aside. I needed a car. I got all those things in place. I was in a position where I was probably much luckier than some people, right? So I had to reduce my risk. So I moved down here, and I was in a position where I was able to take a few months, gather my thoughts, and kind of work all of the bad ideas out of my head, or what I thought were bad ideas at the time, and just write every day. Wrote every day. So that when I first went on stage, although my stage persona or whatever, or my stage presence was fucking terrible, my writing was okay, so I could at least grab people some way. So when I went to the venue, I put it off for so long. I was like, oh no, I'll do it the next month, or I'll do it here, I'll do it then, and then I finally set a date. I was like, this is my date. I still went a month beyond that. I was so petrified.
Yeah.
And then I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I know I'm going to do it. I got to do it. I booked the time. I went down. I sat there shaking. So scared. And then you get up on stage, you do it, and you realize it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Was that the realization you had at the end? Were you like, it's not that bad, or were you like, holy fuck, that was terrifying, but I kind of liked it?
Oh, terrifying! No, it was terrifying. Don't get me wrong. But before you go and do it, your mind is telling you, oh, you're going to die at the end of this.
Yeah,
This is the type of fear where you're just going to die.
Yeah.
You're not going to survive this.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But then you get up and you do it, and you're like, okay, that was terrible. But I'm here. I can still do another set whenever I want, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you do it. And, I kind of jumping to another, not a totally different topic, but I'll say the best thing that happened to me in my career so far was the night I bombed harder than I had ever bombed before. Sitting in front of 200 people and no one is making a sound.
Where was this? At a club?
It was I'd love to say that I got this gig because of my talent. It was literally because I had a car. That's all it was, is I had a car.
Yeah. Was it in the middle of nowhere?
No, Moncton. So
there we go, yeah.
Well, yes.
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 Middle of nowhere. I was in that competition for Stanhope, and I got off stage, and the promoter was like, hey, great job. And I'm like, okay, even I know that wasn't a great job. You can dial it back a bit.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough for you to be sucking my cock that hard.
Yeah.
So anyway, he says, and he didn't even try to really mask it at all. He was just like, you have a car, right? I was like, yes, I have a car. And he goes, all right, well, do you want to go and open for show in Moncton? Of course, yes. Of course, why not? I had no idea what it was. So the next day I figured out with work, blah, blah, blah. I'm driving to the show the day of, get a call from the guy in Moncton. He's like, all right, well, we're going to need you to host the show. And I'm like, well, I've never hosted anything before. I was just kind of told I was going to go do my time and that was going to be it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we're going to get you to host it. Okay, cool. So how much time? Well, we're probably going to need you to do about 20 minutes altogether. And I'm like, I don't have 20 minutes. I might have 10 minutes. I'm literally driving in the car, calling my girlfriend, being like, I'm going to turn around. I can't handle this. I'm having a panic attack in the car as I'm driving. I get there. Luckily, the guy who I was opening up for was Gavin Stevens, who I've become good friends with since. And
I saw that show here.
And we worked together. We've done a couple of a tour together. We're putting some more out there. And he was just so cool. He walked in. He must have saw. As soon as he walked in, I'm sure I looked like I was shitting my pants. I was so nervous. I was not keeping it together.
Yeah.
And he was just, don't worry about it, man. Just do your time. It's fine. Bring me up. I'll do my thing. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, the night that I bombed super hard, and I feel like I'm taking up an awful lot of time here. No one wants to feel like I'm talking like crazy.
No, I like it. It's cool.
The night that I bombed super hard, it was a Christmas party, so it was a bunch of different employers in Moncton that came to this club, and the club itself, they tried to make it into this really comedy club type atmosphere, which was weird because the night before I was watching weird 19-year-old girls just trying to be sexy, which looked so awkward. It was this horrible club where just French girls got super drunk and just did horrible things.
French girl drunk is a different type of
drunk. It's a different type of drunk. Yeah. Thank you. It's a totally different type of drunk. It's next level drunk.
Yeah.
So anyway, the next night they're filing in these people, business people, and you can just tell with Christmas parties and stuff like that, you always have the people who are you can tell we're watching them file in and sit down, and you have people that don't want to laugh at anything remotely offensive because their boss is sitting at the table.
Yeah.
And then you have a bunch of people sitting there where it's I told you we should have did laser tag. I didn't vote for a comedy night. They're just not cool. They're not having fun. They're not with it. They're just literally there because they don't want to get fired.
They're not going for a comedy night. They're going because it's a work thing.
Yeah, it's a work thing. They don't want to be there, right? So I get up, and I'm the host of the show. So I'm the first one that hits the stage. And I mean, the night before, I did fine. I actually did. And then that night, I just ate it hard. Like, hard. They were not buying my stuff at all. Like, the kind of performance where at the end of the night, people were coming up to the three comedians and being like, man, you were awesome. Going to the next guy, hey, really enjoyed your stuff. And then they came to me and they were like, hey, you're new. It's okay.
You're new, right?
It's fine. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Nothing more encouraging than that.
Yeah.
You just got off stage and you knew you just ate it hard. And people are like, you'll figure it out.
But I feel like all comedians have those stories. You listen to really good comedians, Louis C.K., Joe Rogan, Ari Shaffir, any of them. Everybody has a bombing story.
It's
no matter,
unavoidable.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable. Like, you're gonna bomb. Like, and after that night, it really was. It was such a ridiculous bomb. There's so many people. It was so quiet. And at that time, it was the biggest show I had ever done. And you don't know how you're going to handle it. You don't know what's going to happen. You get off stage and you realize literally, that wasn't so bad. That's all right. It's over. It's fine. I get to move on. I'll never see these people again.
Yeah.
It's fine. And then from that point on, I was just really never scared of bombing after that. I was never really that scared of it.
Yeah. You've already been there. You know what it's like. Fuck it.
You've already done it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it can't get worse than that.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like, you've already kind of taken it on and survived. It's fine. And you still bomb as you go further along. You're trying new stuff. Some people just don't get your stuff. Yeah. It happens.
So I always love stories about hecklers. Do you got any good stories?
I've heard one or two, I'm sure, from you.
I love these stories, man. I got the stupidity of some hecklers, man.
I haven't really had a lot of hecklers, and I think one of the main reasons is when I first started out, I was doing a lot of one-liners, and they were a lot of offensive one-liners. Yeah, and they were a lot of.
I know the ones you're talking about. Yeah,
there were a lot of offensive one-liners, and they were kind of at a left field. So I don't know if it was one of those things where you had to listen to get it, or if it was one of those things where because it was so offensive, maybe people were like, maybe I don't say anything to this guy because he'll say anything. Meanwhile, they didn't know I was more scared of them than they were scared of me. Yeah. But I didn't really get a lot of hecklers, but I did get one night. And you get so angry and you want to deal with it, but this guy was so drunk. Yeah. He was so drunk that it took me a second, but then I looked at him and I realized he doesn't even know he's heckling. He just thinks we're having a conversation. Yeah. So obliterated, so drunk that he's just like it got to a point where I was just sticking the mic in his face and like just trying to interact with him that hopefully he would just stop. And I had to look at him at one point and I was like, dude, you gotta fuck off. You gotta stop talking. And he looked at me like, what? I don't understand. I thought we were having a good time. I was like, you just gotta stop. All right? Yeah. So he stayed quiet. And I went through my joke. And right before I hit the punchline, he starts again. Just with this random thing like, you ever been to Cape Breton or something like that? It just didn't make any sense. Yeah. And I just kind of looked at the promoter of the show, and the promoter of the show looked at me, and at that point the crowd was like yelling at the guy to be quiet. And I was like, I don't know how to handle this. I gotta go. Yeah. Like, you know, and then afterwards you're fighting your natural instincts where you're like, what do I do? Do I go and talk to this guy or like
knock him out?
Well, yeah. That's kind of what goes through your head.
Arm wrestle him?
I'm not an aggressive guy, but that's kind of arm wrestle. That'd be awesome. Just like
live on stage
right now.
You and me right now, over the top. We're gonna arm wrestle. This is a junior high cafeteria. Let's do this. Yeah. This is how men handle their shit. Yeah. Hecklers are horrible.
Oh man, I love this interview format. I feel like Jean Gomeshi. Like if I just get real close and just get real. Oh, so tell me about
he's a great
tell
guy,
me about
so.
this spiritual. I mean, I'm less rapey.
I feel like Jian Gameshi. Something that should never have been said past 2014.
Oh god.
You made that tweet that made me cringe. It was like, it was something about Jian Gameshi, and you were like, yeah, 2 in the Jian, 1 in the Gomeshi.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is gross. I have to put my phone down now. This is sick.
Yeah. What was the other one I tweeted? What was it? I just had an orgasm trying to think of a joke about Jian Gameshi. I must have hit my Q spot.
Oh.
Yeah.
Speaking of him, have you guys watched the new Trailer Park Boys?
What the fuck does that have to do with Jian Gomeshi?
Yeah.
Well, he had that the girl who played Ricky's baby mama came forward.
She was one
of the girls.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
I get the link now. That was obscure, but thank you
Very
for
obscure,
explaining it.
very obscure.
Thank you for
the
explaining.
segue.
There we go. That's how we're doing it.
That's some random.
That was
101.
complicated. That was complicated.
That was intricate.
Yeah.
That's not for the easy listeners. Well, yeah. See, the new season came out yesterday.
I know this is such
Oh, you're not
so
a fan.
opposite
You're not
to
a fan.
everybody else's opinion, but I don't like the Trailer Park Boys. I think they're great. I think the show is awesome. I think they're fucking hilarious. But I don't know.
Sure sounds like you like it.
I respect it, but something about it is just not for me.
Yeah.
All right.
enough.
Yeah, I like it. But at the same time, I like it, but I'm not the guy that runs to Netflix the first day that it's on, plays it, and like can't wait for it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely the guy where if somebody goes, "Hey, let's watch the Trailer Park Boys," I'm like, "Okay,
I'm stoned.
let's play it."
Sure.
I'll watch that.
Sure.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
But you're right; they're talented as hell. They make it seem like they're not, but they really are.
Yeah,
they
they're
gotta figure it out,
geniuses. Yeah, for sure.
Well, to make it in that industry.
Yeah, Snoop Dogg's in love with them. Snoop Dogg says he wants to come here for a new season and live in the trailer park and do. Didn't you see that? Snoop Dogg has his own show on. He calls it like Gangster News Network, GGN. What? Yeah, he has his own show where he just sits there and gets high with random people. It's almost like a podcast, but he had the Trailer Park Boys on, and they just sat there.
Whomped.
Really?
Like, they were so high, man.
No way.
I was blown away. I was like, what the fuck?
They did a show with Doug Benson the next day, and they were explaining how that went, and they were like, I don't know what happened. Like,
I've never seen it. Like, they're notorious for being pot smokers. So it's just like, I don't know. Is that just their character? Are they a lot more mature in real life?
I feel they do.
You know what I mean?
But
But
they must, yeah.
Snoop must have that blood, though, man. He must have that.
Snoop
blood.
Dogg is like legendary status in terms of smokers.
Well, Snoop, when I lived in Fredericton, he did a show there, and my girlfriend worked at the Delta, and that's where he was staying, and he rented out an entire floor of the Delta.
Oh my
And
God.
she was saying, like, it was like days afterwards, and the whole floor still reeked of weed.
Wow.
Did she meet him?
No.
Did she meet Snoop?
No.
Oh, man. I feel he's probably pretty closed off. He's got his entourage.
I just want to shake his hand.
Big,
man. That's
scary
all.
dudes.
Oh yeah, no. She was saying like one of the biggest human beings she's ever seen was his right hand.
Oh, yeah.
Announcer guy. Like,
Oh, yeah.
He would have to. You'd have so many people trying to approach him. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like so many stoners just being like, "Let's smoke a joint." Like,
Oh yeah.
you know, everybody's a threat when you're that big.
Yeah.
See him rolling down Spring Garden with the blunt.
That would be amazing. Please come
Stay
and
on the
do
air,
that.
Guile.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Can you imagine just being out and being drunk and you're standing outside having a cigarette and Snoop Dogg walks past you?
Got a light.
Yeah. Oh my God, Snoop Dogg, man.
I can't do a Snoop Dogg impression. It would be something like
Yeah, that was not Snoop Dogg. That was like
Something like
it was like 1970 Chicago pimp.
He's way too smooth.
Yeah.
He's a smooth
I actually
motherfucker.
think it was racist.
Borderline.
The only thing I had no idea Snoop Dogg had. What was it? GGN.
Gangster News
GNN.
Network.
Really?
I think it's GGN. He calls it Gangster News, GNE, or it's something weird. It's GGN.
The only thing
What's the two G's stand for? Just
Gangster News Network. Or Gangster News, GGN.
GNN.
Gangster News. It's
Must be
gangster.
GNN.
He spells news with a G. Like it's like the
does
G.
he? Oh.
It's like the G News
How do
and
you
then
spell
network.
that?
I don't know. It's Snoop Dogg. I don't know.
Rome would be
Oh,
spelled,
you know
right?
what? You know what? That's the perfect answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's Snoop Dogg. It's
Yeah.
fine.
He's so high. He's like, fuck it.
Yeah.
We'll spell it with a G.
It is.
I'm
It's-
Snoop Dogg.
It's GGN.
See?
Hood News.
Good news. He calls
Good
himself
news.
Nemo Hose.
Okay.
Oh man.
Let Snoop do what he wants, man. He's a lion. He's a dog.
He's gotten to the point where
He's a
he
Rastafarian.
can do whatever he wants.
He's the
He
one
really
guy that everybody, if you look at it as like a mathematical formula, everybody should hate him. But I don't think I've ever heard one person say anything bad about Snoop Dogg. He's amazing.
He's
You can't.
creeping up into that level, and I don't want to get into a debate about music and that sort of stuff, but he's obviously creeping into a level like Prince. Like Prince
Yes.
is like,
No,
fuck
definitely.
it,
That's perfect.
fuck it,
Yeah,
I'm,
that's
I'm
really
a
good.
symbol now.
Yep.
Yep.
And people were just like, yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. No, that's fine. Meanwhile, and I'm not a fan of his music, but meanwhile, Garth Brooks puts out an album under another name, and people are like, somebody should commit Garth. This is not right. He is obviously having a psychological break.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Prince is like, no, I'm a symbol now. And people are like, yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, you see huge people in the music industry are like, and then Prince was there. Like Prince makes everybody starstruck.
Prince
Like, did you hear?
is incredible.
Did you hear the story about the SNL anniversary party? And it was like all these celebrities, and Prince gets up on stage, and everybody was like, "Holy fuck, it's Prince! This is amazing! Like, this is so crazy."
Oh, yeah. He is one of those guys too, where like
There's just such an energy about him. Right?
Yeah, like I never grew up listening to a ton of Prince's stuff. Like he was kind of outside my my age range and just your guys' age range as well.
Yeah.
But whenever like you're watching a late night show or whatever and it says Prince is going to be on, well, you still stick around and watch it because he's so legendary.
Yeah.
And then he takes a stage and you're like, why do I like this guy?
Yeah.
But he's so like he's a legend.
There's something about him, man. Just he could be wearing anything.
It
doesn't matter.
Give a fuck.
Everybody still love him.
I would usually
Care.
when it comes to like rap, I'm a big rap fan, but rap has an expiration date for most people, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like Eminem, Jay-Z, all those people are still making music, but who's really talking about the last Eminem record that came out like less than a year ago? You know what I mean? Who's really talking about Magna Carta Holy Grail that Jay-Z just came out with?
There's
There's an expiration date. Snoop Dogg doesn't have one.
There's some people that just transcend everything. They're just, no matter what happens, they'll always be remembered.
They'll always be relevant.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that for sure. Like I went through that as well, but I think it has a lot to do with the generations. Like, you guys are at an age where you're like, early 20s, that sort of stuff, right?
Yep.
And so you got to watch that first transition where rap really was very big in Jay-Z and Eminem, and they still are big.
Well, it's technically still a new genre, honestly. Like
in comparison to most,
In comparison to most, yeah. Like I think it was like the '80s when like the early '80s, late '70s when like hip hop became like a huge thing amongst more than just, you know what I mean? Because it did come from African Americans. So I mean,
man,
it came from that. It came from them rap battling in the like the cotton fields, right? The slaves would rap battle with each other.
They would
that's
rap.
how
They would
got
wait.
through the
They,
day, right?
they would rap battle.
They would rap battle. That's where rap battle came from.
Really?
In the
slaves.
What
the slaves would rap battle
Is
each
this
other.
the Onion right now?
Yeah, no. I actually I heard this from like actual like rap battle.
Not like rap, like they wouldn't spit bars, but it would be
no. They would just kind of like pick on each other, right? Like for fun, right? Like
Okay.
That's what rap battle is.
They can
like,
trace it back to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, and I'm sure like there's always been rap and poetry and like what I mean, but like that like kind of like offensive, playful, joking bars with each other. Yeah, that came from them trying to.
Never heard that.
Yeah, that's bizarre. They don't teach you that.
And I mean, this is what I've heard, right? Who knows? It could have been rap battling fucking thousands of years ago. I don't know, but this is what I've heard, right?
I don't. William Shakespeare, just sitting down.
Yeah, I mean,
do you watch?
I don't really want to get into slavery and all that, but like you would have to like there is a humor with that culture, right?
In any shitty points of history,
you got to get through that with like a humorous attitude.
Well,
right?
you're absolutely right. Like I mean, I'm way too white to know.
Oh.
But with anything, like for me personally, like any sort of shitty thing that's come up in my life, I always treat it with humor.
Yep.
Not everybody does that, but that's a part of human nature. I'm sure there are people throughout time that have always gone to that. They've gone to humor before they've gone to anything else to help deal with what they're doing. And I mean, you can't get much a bigger, horrible situation than what we're talking about.
Exactly.
There had to be some that came out of that. I mean, there had to be some humor that came out of that.
Yeah,
you would have to. I could not. I just couldn't imagine it. I couldn't imagine not going without some laughs throughout the day.
Well, it's just in every horrible point of history, people have to try and make light of it whatever way they can, whatever. Like in horrible times, like I think beautiful things come out of certain things.
Yeah.
Like especially by the people that are being persecuted, or whoever's the victim of whatever's going on. I think that they have to kind of, whether it's artwork or music or poetry or whatever, like a lot of really good things come out of some really shitty situations.
Yeah.
Some of the best stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the best stuff, for sure.
Artistically, like,
Artistically,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, when you're talking artistically, I'm not talking about impact on society in general, but
Yeah.
like artistically, like you think about how even during those times, musically the impact.
Yep.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like some of the music that came out of like people that have been persecuted and kept in tight quarters and stuff. Some of the musical impact that has come out of those times has been
Some of the black...
We touched on this in episode 1, honestly, actually.
Did we?
Yeah, remember we were talking about just kind of, I mean, like rock and roll came from the blues,
of course.
right? So, I mean, rock and roll is huge. So many genres have branched from rock and roll. Like you could even say that a lot of the techno stuff we listen to today comes from that. It comes from bands branching off by starting with synthesizers, starting with all these different things. Yeah. Looking for different sounds. You know what I mean?
Well, you think about even like black music in, you know, some of the times where they were being persecuted the worst. You know, the 20s, the 30s, like some really crazy stuff that has come out then that's changed culture as we know it now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Like I mean, like we said, the blues, right? Like that comes from that culture.
Yeah,
like B.B. King, Robert Johnson, I'm a big fan of. Huge fan of Robert Johnson.
Yeah.
Crossroads, right? That story of him going to the crossroads, meeting the devil, and selling his soul.
Yeah.
In order to make great music. It's a pretty epic legend.
So speaking of beautiful things, Steve Kinch, I believe you have an upcoming podcast.
Yes, and I am a very beautiful thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. Upcoming podcast. It's myself, my very good friend Everett Powers, and my very good friend Robbie Wagner. I've known these guys forever. Like, I mean, I've known Everett since elementary school. I've known Robbie since, high school? Like, it's been a long time. Anyway, yeah, we kind of came up with an idea. We were going to do a podcast. It's going to be coming out. We've decided that it's going to be Tuesday, April the 14th, I believe. The name of the podcast is the Perverted Rhino Podcast.
Nice.
It's pretty. It sounds pretty random, but really, what it comes from is
Rhinos are known for their perverted
they're
ways.
very huge horns.
Yeah,
huge horns. The name where it comes from is I made some sort of a joke when I was in high school that if I was ever going to be in porn, I would call myself the albino rhino.
Oh, that's a great name.
I'm just super dark.
I like
just
that.
super tanned. And my buddy Everett Powers, one of his nicknames was somebody called him Irv Perv. So Perverted Rhino became something that we used a lot. And so we decided the Perverted Rhino would be the perfect way to do it. So yeah, we're the launch for that one is going to be Tuesday, April the 14th. Episode 1, we're working hard on it. It's just kind of 3 guys. These are 2 of the funniest human beings that I know. Like, honestly, Everett is a fantastic musician, singer, songwriter. So he's got a really, really good view on the world from that point of view. Like, just a really good, honest guy. And Robbie is just one of the smartest, quickest, like, just unbelievable. His wit and his humor, it's like a ninja. Like, it is amazing what he can do. He can just chop through a conversation with one little comment, like, and just leave you dying on the floor.
Yeah.
And then I'm the idiot. I don't know.
You say the weird stuff.
I'm just the idiot. I don't know. We've all been friends. It's conversations where we were just growing up, like, and all through our 20s and into our early 30s, we go to parties and stuff, and people would literally stop. We'd be in a room, and we'd be having this conversation and just being absolute idiots, and we look around, and everyone's watching us. You know what I mean? So, and I'm sure you guys have the same thing.
It does. It sounds a lot like our origin tale.
Right, exactly. So you're kind of sitting there, and everyone's watching us, and I remember one of our buddies looked at somebody else and said, "It's like TV." And we kind of thought, okay, maybe there's something there.
Yeah.
And then after we had the idea for the podcast, it just kind of seemed right. It sounded good. It's certainly not something that we're branding at this point as having some sort of like grandiose purpose or idea or theme. It's just kind of, we really just want to make it as entertaining as possible. We get into really foolish stuff. Sometimes it can get pretty offensive. Like, we're just not afraid to get into stuff and be as foolish as possible. I brought a teaser.
Yeah, we've got the teaser. Introduce that.
Brought the teaser. The audio quality is not exactly what it's going to be when we actually release the podcast. It's not quite up to where we're going to be, but it is good. The teaser itself, it's just a quick, I think it's about a minute long, just to set up kind of what it's about. It kind of takes a very 50 Shades of Grey turn.
I assume you'll be fully nude during the whole podcast.
No pants. No pants.
No pants at all.
I wear a shirt because my skin will blind people. I'm much like a welder's torch.
Fair enough.
I'm like the sun. I don't wear any pants, though, just because I like to let it breathe.
Yep.
Okay?
It's important.
It is very important.
Yeah.
So we just get... It's just one of those things, and it's a lot like you guys. Like, we just go off into these strange directions where it just doesn't make any sense anymore.
Yeah.
So the teaser is, it kind of takes a turn. It's not directly 50 Shades of Grey, but it takes it very much...
It's 50 Shades darker.
It's very much in that realm. We get into talking about... the only thing I can use to describe it is it's mostly about choking belts.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
All right.
Fair enough.
Let's
give it a
listen to
listen.
it. Let's listen to it. Here we go.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Perverted Rhino.
I'm horny.
Tons of ski masks.
Millions.
Belts. Choking belts.
Millions. Yeah, not a regular pants belt. A choking belt. A choking belt.
Hey, I don't know what you call them.
Can I borrow a belt?
No.
Hands off, Junior.
No,
you
go to Sears.
That's Daddy's choking belt.
You go to Sears
That's not
and you buy a belt and you be like, I'd like to purchase this choking belt. And they won't do anything. They'll sell it to you.
They will.
They might make a phone call, but they'll sell it to you. I could put more notches in it though, right?
Yeah.
To really make it tight.
Yeah. You walk up with two belts. You're like, I would like to buy this pants belt, and then I would like to buy my masturbation belt, please. Pardon? Gladys, run the young man through. He wants to make a purchase. Yeah, Gladys, run me through. I want to purchase my jerking off belt.
Let's have a moment of silence for David Carradine.
Autoerotic asphyxiation. All right.
Asphyxiation?
Asphyxiation?
Yeah, that's really what we got into there.
I like
it was
that.
kind of... It was, we go dark sometimes. It's, I don't know.
One of them was performing it at the time. Is that what I...
Well, at the end of it, you probably heard the voice you heard at the very end was Robbie, where after we're done laughing and Robbie goes, "Oh, let's give a standing ovation, or let's give it up, or let's have a moment of silence. Sorry, let's have a moment of silence for David Carradine." That's what he says.
Oh, the guy
at the very end. He says, and then from that point we get into, like, is that really the legacy you want to leave? Like, do you really want to get caught? Like, who finds that corpse?
The guy that masturbated too hard.
Yeah. Who oh, I wonder what Dad's doing in the other room. And then it's like, I'm not going to get through this. You know?
I mean, it's hard enough finding your parent or sibling hanging somewhere. I mean,
well, this is already really weird.
Yeah, it's
you have no idea. We got into trying to come up with a top 5 list of people that have died during autoerotic asphyxiation. The only 2 we could come up with really was David Carradine and the singer from INXS.
Yep.
That was really the only 2 you could come up with. But so that's how
we tried our best.
We tried. Listen. If you're listening to this recording, I've already killed myself. I've already been found in a closet, and I apologize. But yeah, I don't know. It's not all like that, man. But we just go wherever it goes. We've known each other for a long time. The choking belts, it just came up. It was just one of those things that came up, and we just ran with it.
It's an interesting teaser to make.
I just kind of wanted it to be as honest as possible. We might have been a little stoned. It's fine.
If you can't handle that, don't tune in. But if you can, check it out, man.
Yeah,
it'd be great.
we would really, really appreciate it. We're really trying to put together an entertaining product, and it's please listen. It's the Perverted Rhino podcast. We're gonna have Facebook, we're gonna have Twitter, we're gonna have like the website, we're gonna have the whole thing. It'll probably be linked to my personal website, which is Stephen Stephen Kinch KINCH.com. So
Does it better than me. Perfect.
And that was like a song. We'll link that as well
for sure
in the end. But it's great. I'm very much looking forward to it. Like when I got this teaser initially, I was like, dude, where's your podcast? I'm listening to it right now. Where do I find this?
Yeah, it's really great. When I spliced together the teaser, like there's been a couple of people that have heard the full episode, and it's not even the first episode. It's just kind of this thing we recorded to kind of see where we wanted to go, and right from the get go, it just kind of sounded right. You know what I mean? Like it just like the person in the recording who you hear, who says, and Matt, you had a great reaction to it when we were listening to it. You go into Sears and you ask to purchase a choking belt. They might not say anything. They might make a phone call, but they'll sell it to you. That's
I love
Robbie.
that line. I love that line.
That's Robbie,
Yeah.
and he's, dude, like, just a great. The two guys I'm working with are just killer, killer.
That's great.
I've never met Robbie, but I've met Everett.
Yeah.
What a shitty! I forget his name as I'm trying to. Okay.
Well, to defend you, I think, and this is something Everett will say. I'm pretty sure the last Everett before him died already. There's not a lot of Everetts in the
But yes,
world.
I've met
great
Everett on many occasions, and you guys are fucking hilarious together. So I'm sure it's gonna, and I'm sure it's gonna be great. And I don't think I've even ever had a conversation with you where it hasn't been totally ridiculous and totally weird. So I'm sure it's gonna be great.
Stupid. It's that's what I mean. Like we're not really worried about getting into like politics and this and that. It's just kind of like we're just trying to be entertaining, and it just goes where it goes.
Well, that's what we're all doing.
Yeah,
we're just trying to have some fun. We're just trying to talk with some friends.
Yeah, man.
I like it.
It's great stuff.
That's what a podcast is. That's anything.
That's what it's about, right?
It's about entertaining people. But I guess unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time today. Again, I'd like to thank Stephen Kinch, funny motherfucker.
Thank you for
look him
coming
up.
in,
Yeah,
man.
I really appreciate it. Really, really good time. Also, again, thank you, Nico, for letting us use your music again. For anybody out there, that was Eris by Nico. You find him on soundcloud.com/Nico Music. And again, thank you, Vinny, I guess is his industry name.
Vinicius.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to record and sound super awesome. So, Ramble's Corner Podcast, episode 4. Thank you for listening. We're out.